Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of The Front. As always, you can check out my website at leadtheteam.net for free sales training, for motivational content, and for leadership tips. Also, you could cruise on over to leadtheteam.tv. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel there. Remember, there are new episodes of The Front every Wednesday and Sunday. And if you're interested in the podcast, those are on just about every podcast platform out there. Google Play, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, you name it. Just type in The Front and Mike Phillips and it should pop right up. Now, whether you're watching this episode of The Front or if you're listening to it, please participate in the comments down below. Share your thoughts and share your opinions. Feel free to ask questions, as often that leads to a really excellent future show. So today I am talking about monitoring and measuring when it's important right now on The Front.
Thanks for tuning in to Lead the Teams, The Front.
That's right. Right now on The Front, we're going to be talking about monitoring and measuring when it's important. My name is Mike Phillips, and I will be your host. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I really appreciate it. Now, when I'm saying that, monitoring and measuring when it's important, you may say to yourself, it's always important, Mike, and you would be right. There are so many different facets of business and so many things to monitor and measure so that you can achieve really good results in any business. And this idea came to me. I've been spending time training with a new BDC manager in our Automotive BDC. And as we were talking, one of the first conversations that he and I had when he was getting in here and we were getting ready to set up our training was he said, well, what are the KPIs I should be measuring against? And if you don't know, KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator. So what are the things, what are the keys I should be measuring in my automotive call center? And so we had a fairly lengthy discussion on it. And then I started thinking, well, when we're talking about KPIs, and so specifically tonight, I'm talking about how does it tie into our relationships with our third parties or our vendors, and especially in the automotive world. So one of the things that I want you all to understand is, first off, performance measurement starts with targeting and goal setting. See, a lot of people think that performance measurement comes in after you've set the goal. Well, hey, once I've set the goal, then I can start measuring the performance. And it doesn't work that way. As a key leader in any organization, in any business, especially in the automotive world, but in any business, it's your job to begin by determining what are the realistic targets that we're going to set up. What are the key things that we should be measuring? And so when you're monitoring something, your system has to be efficient, it has to be consistent, it has to be duplicatable. You can't just decide one month, hey, we want to improve this one item. We want to improve our number of widgets sold, or we want to improve our overall sales, or we want to improve our contact with our customers, or we'd like to improve the number of appointments we set. You can't pick one item, 1 month, and then, oh, well, hey, I'm going to measure this month. Right? Let's try and do that, and we'll do this 1 month. Consistency is really key when it comes to measuring goals. When it comes to these performance indicators, they got to be duplicatable, and you have to do it month after month after month, so you can get a consistent kind of a baseline. What is not just the national standard or what's the standard in your industry, but what is the standard in your business? What's the standard in your store? And you have to determine what are the real keys you want to measure. It has to be something that is measurable and allows you, or that will tell you when you have achieved a specific goal or not. And so when you're setting your specific KPIs up for each goal, it's really important to see how you're going to monitor and measure it. And are you going to measure it as a group, as an individual? Are you measuring it as the third party against what's coming into your store? And here's one of the keys. This is something to consider that I think is really important. If you can't measure it, or it's really difficult to measure, you got to ask yourself, is that a key metric that I should be measuring? You know, do you want to measure and we'll take automotive, for example. Do I need to measure my number of leads, for example, coming into a call center? Do I need to measure the number or amount of contact? Do I need to measure the amount of appointments that come from that? And on down the line, do I need to measure the return on investment? Like, what's my investment for this source? And then what's the return on it? And yeah, all those things are important. The things that I'm bringing up are important to me, and they're important in my business and in my store. You may look at it and say something is different for you. You want to be well informed on what are the national standards, what are the national statistics, what are the things that other stores or other businesses are doing, what are they measuring, why is that important to them? Ask lots of questions so that you can develop a really solid target and set of goals to go after. And it's important to take into consideration what the standards are, but don't make them gospel, right? There are so many people that say, well, that's the national standard. The national standard is to do this, so that's what we should be doing. Well, your store may deal with a different demographic. Legitimately, if you're in each place has its own personality. Each physical location will have its own ecosystem that it feeds off of. And so to give you this cookie cutter approach and say, well, here's the thing you should be measuring for everybody. It doesn't work that way. Just because it works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody across the board. You need to know what you want to measure, and then what are the results based on what your standards are. And so here's one of the other things to consider. And I have really good relationships in automotive with a lot of vendors that we do business with, a lot of third-party people that are coming in, not necessarily just third-party lead providers, but I have good relationships with third-party companies, the companies that we do business with that are not us. And every one of these companies, here's one of the unique things. Every one of them comes in and tells you how their process is and how you should conform to what their process is. And it's like, hold up, just stop, hold on. Here's the thing. How can your product come into my ecosystem and enhance my process? How can your product come into my facility or my store or my business, into my ecosystem? How can it bolt on? And how can you create a positive interaction to enhance my product or my service? The vendor world becomes that they come in and they say, well, here's the standard. Here's what you should be following. And it's like, that's good. You want to take that into account. I'm all for it. I'm all for listening and learning new things. I mean, we talk about that all the time on these episodes. I am all for being open-minded and learning new things. At the same time, you cannot just take those metrics and assume them to be true. You have to ask yourself the question, how do I know? How do we know that this is accurate? And you should be the one measuring your key performance indicators. You should figure out a way within your system to measure your keys and then call back with the vendor, call back with that third party and say, okay, here's what I got. Do you have the same thing? Do we have apples and oranges? How do those compare? Have a good communication, have an open communication with that third party. And it's good to look at what their statistics are, but so many of them are bloated and they're skewed for the vendor to sell more product. Right? So and when I'm saying, how do you know? Sometimes it has to be you, the leader, that is either delegating somebody or doing it yourself, that you're actually going to pick up the phone and call and check and thunk those gauges and determine what is correct. Is this an accurate measurement in my store of the result we got? And so many people are unwilling to do that. It's grassroots. We've got all kinds of dashboards and reports and statistics and all kinds of things that you can look at, and it's like, oh, well, they can be skewed any which way to say somebody is or isn't performing. When you're looking at it, sometimes you just got to pick up the shovel, right? Pick up the phone, call the person on the other end, call the consumer. Like if you're in automotive sales, When's the last time you picked up a phone and had a one-on-one conversation with a customer about what advertising brought them in? And they'll be so confused. There'll be people that'll dispute me on this because it's like, oh, well, there's 19 different touch points that they hit online. I appreciate that, but what is at the top of their mind that actually brought the consumer to me? Where do they believe they saw me? I mean, to me, that's something that's interesting to me. So you want to make sure when you're measuring KPIs, when you're looking at these key things, you're using your indicators and not somebody else's. You know, it's valuable to know what's important to them, but make sure you are using the things that are most valuable to you in your store, your business, and so forth. Here's the other thing. Don't get caught in the trap of comparing your numbers or your business to somebody else's. Just because they're doing a fantastic job selling widget A and you can't sell widget A, maybe you're knocking it out of the park with widget B. Don't get in the trap that, well, if they can sell that many widget A's, I can sell that many widget A's. It doesn't always work that way, right? Sometimes you have to have different products. If you're in a mountainous region, for example, that's where we're at in automotive, 4x4s and trucks may be a bigger deal for us than economy and commuter cars in a city. You know, that it's just one of those things. You have different indicators. So don't get caught up comparing what you do to somebody else. Yes, it's good to look at it, but the best indicator of performance and achieving goals and how well you're doing is, did you do better today? Did your KPIs, did they go up? Did you improve today versus what you did yesterday? Did you build on your yesterday's performance? That's one of the biggest things that I see, because it's easy to fall in the trap of this person selling so many cars or this person is selling so much in service and so forth. But you are a different business. You're a different person. You have a different demographic. You have a different model. You have different processes. Question is, are you executing on your processes, and are you executing on your processes excellently so that you can build on yesterday's performance and continue to kick butt and have a killer week, month, 2018, 2018, I've heard it called, and so on, right? So that's my message today. Monitor and measure when it's important. And yes, it's always important. I'm talking specifically about advertising and kind of setting up KPIs. And it's a little bit of a you have to think through it, right? There's not anything, I'm not giving you and saying, well, the number's 10% on this, because it might not be 10% for you. You got to sit down and determine what it is and then go after it and crush it. Crush the goal that you set for yourself. So thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of The Front. If you got something out of it, please make sure, give it a thumbs up, share it on your social media. Remember, I do this every single Wednesday and Sunday. I sure would appreciate that. I look forward to seeing you again. And until we speak next, I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day.